Hi, thank you for inviting me. It's nice to see you all, and I must say I'm very happy to be here. So many interesting talks, fascinating people to meet. Thank you. This is a very simple interactive device. It responds to a user's input. You turn the handle, and it plays music. It has an interesting feature. You can change the cylinder, and it will play a different melody. Before I start, I need to warn you. I would like to show you now some pictures of not necessarily useful projects outside of the type world, and I hope that you won't find it too offensive. I just believe that it's good to take a break from our own lab, go out and enjoy what's out there to return inspired. Interactivity. Interactivity happens when the two-way flow of information takes place. Music Box has quite limited interactivity, but constructors of this installation turned the whole room into an interactive light sculpture. It is called Wander Through the Crystal Universe and was made by TeamLab in Tokyo last year. Viewers are invited to enter and walk around. This movement affects the light particles and creates changes in the installation, so the whole room interacts with the user. Viewers can also interact with the work by using their smartphones to select elements that make up the installation. I really like this example. It's very interactive and holds many surprises, but gives the visitor a little bit of control so they can feel safer within this very specific environment. And this is another interactive project I find very interesting. Its purpose is to help the user to get inner balance. This wearable has many sensors, a biofeedback device to monitor, and servo motors so it can communicate through its body language. If the user is stressed, its head is raised and its tail straight. If the user is in balance, its head rests on the user's arm and its tail curls up. This device can also coach the user in practicing a mind-balancing breathing pattern. I really wish I could wear it on my arm in this moment. Interactivity from a totally different perspective. Intelligent textiles which can react and adapt. This material reacts to body heat and sweat, causing flops around heat zones to open and cool down the body of someone who wears it. Team called Biologic from MIT Media Lab embedded special bacteria into fabric to ventilate garments. They harvest bacteria cells in a lab and assemble them with a micron-resolution bioprinting system, which transform those cells into a responsive textiles, a second skin. Biologic is applying this technology to create sportswear that regulates athletes' body temperature and helps to improve their performance. For me, especially inspiring are those projects which balance in between different disciplines, like this one, which is in between fashion and biology. And a hidden interactivity. A bug is quite an ordinary object, which usually for us is something rather static. It's a finished product. But not this one. It changes its color when it's held in hands and responds to fluctuations in air pressure. The material is treated with a special ink, and as the wind brushes across, vivid colors appear. Then it returns to black when indoors. Thanks to the technology, this bag becomes dynamic, interactive, mirrors its environment. It becomes alive in a way. So can typography. Typography used to be something very static, we all know it. Since the swords were set, it was very difficult to adjust anything. And we still think about fonts as something static, but typography is becoming more and more dynamic and interactive now, and technology makes it easier. This is an installation by Last Lab. The installation searches for locations which are currently in the news, like Louvre. Then it uses Google Street View images of a location, abstracts it into grids, and fills grid with new information. Amazing project about typography responding to a fast-changing information environment. As some of you experienced, weather in The Hague, a city situated on the coast of the Netherlands, it's very special. For those of you who haven't, The Hague is famous for its always present wind. This is another project by Last Lab called Beaufort's Poetry and is a permanent installation at Forum in The Hague. A projection on the main wall of the building expresses the local wind speed and direction in real time through a generative poem. This is an example of creating relationship between typography and the weather data. But yeah, this is typography. What about type design itself? Can it be interactive? Of course, I couldn't talk about interactive experimental fonts without mentioning Letteror works. For those of you who don't know, Letteror is a collaboration between Just van Rossum and Erik van Blokland. Are Just and Erik with us now? So they probably are expanding their knowledge on hinting in variable fonts now, which I also would love to do it. I'm sending greetings to them. Twin was a typeface designed for the twin cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul. Cities where the weather is extreme. It gets very cold in the winter and very cold in the summer there. The font can change its shapes to more rounded when it's hot, and when it gets colder, letters are getting more sharp shapes. I feel very sad that this typeface is not in use anymore. I asked Erik yesterday, because I love the concept. I think it's totally brilliant. Changeable typefaces lead us naturally to a very widely discussed topic this conference. Guess what? Variable fonts. Variable font technology is amazing. Just imagine. It is possible to create highly adjustable fonts with so many points on the axis, so many options. You all know it. We saw many of examples during this conference. A single font could have 6, 9, 15 axes. So many possibilities for the user to choose from. User would be able to adjust width, weight, contrast, type of stroke terminals, anything really. It seems tempting. It seems like the presence of white choice might be appealing as a theory. But in reality, choice makers might find more and more choice to be actually debilitating. Research shows that an excess on choices often leads decision makers to be less, not more satisfied once they actually decide. This cognitive process is called a choice overload, and very complicated variable fonts could bring this issue. If I'm a user of an electronic reader and I want to be a conscious consumer, I am given a choice, then how do I choose which typeface, in which size, width, weight would be best, most ergonomic for me? I think that there is no need to give this choice to the user. Novel situations with an excessive number of options of similar attractiveness can make the decisive process overwhelming. I'm not sure if it's also a good idea to push this responsibility from designers to the users. As designers, we are taught since the early years of our education that less is more, that more data is creating more potential for chaos, that it is very important to make our designs clear and that choosing a right typeface is crucial. So if I'm a designer or a developer, how do I choose appropriate weight, italic angle for the website application I'm currently working on? It is important to note that when the amount of available information increases, the choice is becoming easier to make. So yes, good typography education definitely can help in this case. However, if we think about variable fonts as something stable rather than dynamic, as a set of typefaces, the choice overload can become a real marketing issue. So for what variable fonts are good for? If variable fonts are used in an interactive environment, it decreases number of decisions needed to be made in order to use a variable font without losing its value. The typeface, like this one designed by Hendrik Weber, our type director, can become very expressive, can become an infographic itself. And in other case, a typeface can stay invisible and serve good typography. And this is what variable fonts are great for, automated and interactive projects. Thanks to the sensors, actuators, and self-learning algorithms, together with variable font technology, interactivity is easier to achieve than ever. We can make those multidisciplinary connections much easier now. Most common smartphone devices have up to 10 sensors. Just imagine what we can do. One of the most important concepts in design is the idea of scale. Nowadays, we're changing scale very often. These pinch and unpinch gestures we make in order to zoom in and out feel already so natural to us. We use different displays, different resolutions, and I think that with new technologies, this tendency will increase. However, even if the concept of changing scale is very common, it is not so easy to make fonts scalable in an appropriate way. You know where I'm getting, the concept of optical size. Seems like a also very popular topic this conference. For those of you who don't know, I will explain a little bit. This concept of optical size refers to something different than simply increasing or decreasing the size of the letter form. It's all about the size of the text. Before industrialization, before times when machines took over the production of matrices, every style and font size was produced by hand. Punch cutters had to cut each weight of a typeface separately. This was an extremely laborious and expensive process. That's why an expert engraver would adapt each font size, and optical size adjustments were a side effect of it. What are those adjustments? Just to sum up. Overall weight of a typeface is increased, apertures are opened, width of the letter is increased, as well X height is increased, spacing is looser, stroke contrast is reduced, small counters are enlarged, features are emphasized or, like in this case, suppressed. Please take a look at the curl, loop, and tail in the uppercase Q. And you can see here how the features are getting suppressed. Seems like with the start of the phototypesetting era, and then with the start of the digital revolution, concept of optical size somehow became a bit forgotten. Because we could simply take the same shape represented by, for example, an outline and scale almost however we want. So today, optical adjustments are mostly present in hinting, if we're lucky enough to have a hinted font. It is important to say that some of designers, and also like as we saw in a brilliant Lawrence presentation, so some of designers of GX fonts like Robert Slimbach from Adobe were trying to revive the idea of optical sizes. Others, like Akira Kobayashi, one of our type directors at Monotype, decided to solve this issue designing single subfamilies. Example of this is his typeface, FF Clifford. This typeface has 6 weights, 3 Roman and 3 italics. Those weights are named by their optical size. 18 for large text, 9 for text around 9 to 12 points, 6 for use in smaller sizes. Now, variable fonts are an amazing occasion to bring back and embrace this concept. And thinking about the possibilities, new environments in which typography will function, and how we as industry can react to those new technologies, at Berlin Monotype office, we decided to work with this very old typographic concept, an optical size, and started an experimental project. We chose FF Clifford, and we made a variable font of it. But then it wasn't enough for us. We thought, wouldn't it be great if the typeface can change accordingly to the font size and adjust the optical size automatically? I was really happy to hear that we won't have to worry about that in the future. Great news. Thanks for an update, Lawrence. For producing this variable font, the most challenging part was to create point-compatible masters without losing distinctive features of each master. Some characters can vary so much that it was impossible to make them interpolate harmoniously, and we had to find a solution. We decided to use glyph substitutions based on axis coordinates. To do it, we prepared two versions of the same glyph in the font, one with one design style and another designed differently. Then we built a feature variation. So now, if a variant is requested for a particular point on the axis, the G-subtable dictates the substitution. In other words, G-subtable controls the choice of a glyph. Exceeding certain point on the axis triggers the replacement of one version of a certain character to another version of this character. I really have to thank Akira Kobayashi, Bob Taylor, and Josh Hardley for supporting us with producing this font. As we were working on this fonts, we needed a test environment. That's why we prepared a website, our playground. User can adjust the text size, and the optical size will automatically change. Because many devices today have cameras so they can see us, we started experimenting with face recognition and face tracking algorithms. For this project, we chose Beyond Reality Face. We thought, what if we could measure the size of a head and then make text enlarge or decrease depending on how far the user is from the device? It would be cool, right? Of course, we pretty quickly discovered that, first, if the adjustment is happening constantly and the user is moving, the text constantly changes. Second, that it is highly uncomfortable to stay frozen while reading. Third, it is very difficult to read when the text is constantly changing. I wasn't very happy here, as you can see. The conclusion was the adjustment should be subtle or available rather as a calibration than on default. On the website, we have hidden little interactive surprises for you. And you can also read a great article about optical size written by Vorkel Ronneberger. So I encourage you to go check it out yourself, share with your students, colleagues, family, and friends so they understand what optical sizes is and how great is it that we are able to use them again. The website is available in German and in English. And the website is now live. And this is what you have to do to try it yourself. First, you need to have installed the developer kit, because only their variable fonts work at the moment, as we know, preferably WebKit Nightly. Then you go to our website. Here is the address. If you want to try our face tracking demo, you need to activate Adobe Flash for this website. Sorry for that. And allow the camera. We promise we won't record you. And then you can have fun. So I would like to show you now some faces behind this project. You already know me. Together with Inka Strothman. Inka, where are you? Hi. We work on creating a font variable font. Bernd, are you here with us? Hello. He was the one responsible for the design of the website and very nice interactive ideas. Johannes. Johannes was our developer, and since the algorithm can recognize not only head but face, it is possible to assign other adjustments. As you can see here, the descenders and ascenders are enlarging as Johannes' jaw drops when he's discovering yet another bug. Look at the J. Andreas Frolov was our mentor and support, and we are sending him greetings. It's a pity he couldn't make it today, and it's amazing that this works. Of course, this is a very beginning of an interesting path to explore, and I'm very curious where it will take us. Now, we are left with a question. Where could we use variable fonts? And during this conference, there were already so many amazing answers, but we also had some ideas. A few examples. Voice recognition. If you could use voice recognition and it could recognize how loud I speak. Imagine that if I'd raise my voice, the font would get bolder. Imagine all those angry emails we would receive. Isn't that amazing? There are some startups which intensively work on interesting wearable devices with large flexible screens. The screens are getting bigger, so the scale will matter more. I can imagine those devices using sensors to detect the movement of my hand, and if I would move it to my face, the font could be adjusted using, of course, optical size, but other parameters as well. Or I would really like to see a PDF I can read on my device with a variable font inside. So when I zoom in or zoom out, the optical size would be automatically adjusted. Yeah. And of course, new technologies like virtual reality, which allows to take user to another location. Augmented technology, in which what users see is then overlaid with a layer of a digital content, or especially mixed reality, in which virtual objects are responsive to the natural world and to the user. Those new technologies bring a question: how responsive interactive typography could get? I can imagine it being a very dynamic environment with highly scalable elements. And it is very interesting how the interface for those devices could look and feel like. I think this is very weird, but interesting. What challenges and possibilities it will bring to typography, UI, and UX design. At the moment, it is hard to imagine variable fonts working in this environment, but who knows what will happen when fast rendering algorithms will improve. And in fact, there are some designers who already are working with typography there. Dong-Hyun Park from Microsoft, a designer of Typography Inside application, maybe some of you know it, recently worked on porting this application to HoloLens, mixed reality environment. Here you can see him moving type, placing in different places. There's a brilliant article on Medium. You can go check it out later. Yep. Okay, sorry, we got a little stuck. And he's using different scales and different perspectives. These things might look like fun toys, like a music box. One can say that it is not very useful. It has one simple purpose: giving joy, entertain. Music boxes were in fact the first devices with hardware and software. The main part, with a comp, is a hardware, and a cylinder where melody is coded is software. And it is said that music boxes eventually led us to the invention of the computer. It is easy to overlook an important invention and opportunities which are hidden in such devices. Luckily, we have designers who can absorb those new ideas and transform them into useful projects. I hope that it will happen to variable fonts, and I'm looking forward to see all those amazing projects. Thank you.